Insolvency isn't failure, it's a financial condition, and most directors don't get into trouble because they're reckless or they're dishonest. They get into either because they don't understand what insolvency actually means until it's too late. And when people hear the word insolvency, they think bailiffs, losing me home, being banned from ever running a business again. So they avoid the subject completely. They bury their head in the sands, they keep on trading, and they hope that the next month will fix it. And ironically, that's how insolvency becomes dangerous. Now this video is for a director at the start of that journey. Not the crisis point, not the court stage, but the moment you're thinking something isn't right here and I need to understand my options. Now what insolvency actually means, let's strip it right back. Dead simple. A company is insolvent if either of these tests apply. The first one is cash flow insolvency. You can't pay your debts as they fall due. So you're in a time to pay arrangement with the HMRC. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's the most common type. And you've got something called the balance sheet test. And all that means is your liabilities are greater than your assets, even if you're still trading. This is a bit quieter and often ignored, but listen, just as serious. Now, for me, you can fail those two tests and still keep trading if you can answer this question. Is your business going to get on a firm financial footing again in the next 12 months? You might be waiting for some big payments. You might be about to get on a big job that's going to make you decent money. Now, listen, if any of those two have scared you and you want to speak to somebody about your options right now, go into the comment section below. There's a link at the top. Click the link. My team will call you, okay? We are free, independent, and we're #1 on Trustpilot. Now, why insolvency is a turning point and not necessarily the end is something that a lot of you guys miss. Because the moment insolvency exists, your duties change. You are no longer acting primarily for the shareholders, growing the business, for the future, you know, all that good stuff. You're now acting for creditors. It's not optional, it's law. What it means is once you become insolvent, you've got to put the interests of your creditors first. Now why this matters is because if you ignore this shift and you carry on as normal, you know, paying creditors who screamed the loudest, draining loads of cash out of the business, continually rolling the dice, you're creating personal risk. And in a lot of times you've not meant to, but the law expects you to act differently once insolvency exists. Now, there's a load of common signs that directors miss. They won't wake up one day and go, oh, I'm insolvent. It creeps in. But the early warning signs are, and listen, I hear this all the time, you're using VAT as working capital. And I see why people do it. Because in the past, HMRC haven't screamed loud. They could normally let you get away with 2 VAT quarters and people will think, oh, I'll dip into the VAT to keep trading. You know, you pay the PAYE late just this once, or then it becomes you pay it late again, or you stop paying it. Your suppliers are shortening terms. Your credit cards in the company are maxed out. You're constantly in that overdraft. And then you might take on personally guaranteed debts just to keep the business propped up. And like from your point of view, and I know this because I've been there myself, like emotional red flags, not wanting to look at the bank balance, like getting that anxiety when you're logging onto online banking, dreading opening emails, opening your posts with anxiety, or worse still, ignoring brown letters. You know, you're sleeping badly, constantly firefighting. I've been there. Listen, the reason why I've got the #1 director insolvency advisor in the UK, I'm in a really unique position. I've been where you're at. Like I was a director who went through an insolvency and I thought my life was over. And on the back of that, I've built the #1 advisory for directors out there. So I really get, listen, insolvency is emotional as much as it's financial. But the earlier you acknowledge it, the more options you've got. Like I say, insolvency, it doesn't necessarily mean you're in trouble. You know, it doesn't automatically mean you've done something wrong. You know, it doesn't mean you'll be investigated. It doesn't mean you're going to lose your house. It doesn't mean you're going to be banned from the business. Because most of the people I speak to are honest, hard-working, unlucky, and they've been caught by something. They've been not paid. Biggest customers not paid them. Or jobs have been delayed and cancelled. What gets a director in trouble? It's not the insolvency itself, but ignoring the bloody thing. Like, listen, not accepting that there's a problem here, continuing to trade, rolling the dice, you know, taking on supplier debt when they know they're never going to pay it back. But then you sign personal guarantees because you need to make payroll on Friday, or you think it's going to get better next month. And you're making these decisions through blind hope. There's no financial information to back up what you're doing. Honestly, burying your head's not going to work. It's painful. Like I said, I've been there. But you've got options even if the business is insolvent. But you've got to get clarity. There is no one size fits all for every business. But I'll go through the options. Option 1, do nothing. Bury your head in the sand and become an ostrich. This is common and dangerous, the most dangerous option, because it leads to loss of control. If you don't do anything, eventually one of your creditors will wind you up. It's a winding up petition. And your options are pretty much zero once that's happened. You either pay what the debt is, or you get wound up by the courts. And instead of finding somebody who can put you through an insolvency process voluntarily, someone you choose, you've lost control. The official receiver is going to do it. And let me tell you, the official receiver are going to be harsher than you, than any insolvency practitioner. And the first thing they're going to say is you're not fit to be a director because you knew you were insolvent. You knew at that point you needed to not make your creditors' positions worse. Therefore, you should have done this voluntarily. But listen, doing nothing is still a decision. You know, option 2, informal arrangements. I'm a big fan of this. You know, a good insolvency guy will do his best to try and help you avoid him. And all it means is negotiate with creditors directly. But this is only going to work if your business is valuable. Your creditors have got to cooperate. HMRC have got to agree. There are some downsides. It's fragile. You know, if you set up these arrangements and you don't stick to them, bang, they're going to start enforcement action against you. So there's no real protection. But like I say, if it's a short-term problem and you can deal with it with going to them with like the financial information, this is what's happened, this is what's going on, this is what we're expecting going on, can work for you. Because if you're talking to your creditors, you're setting yourself aside from lots of people who just bury their head in the sand thinking, I cannot speak to them and tell them bad news. If you bury your head in the sand, they know it's bad news. If you talk to them, I promise you, you will stand out and you'll get some goodwill for that. Option 3, a more formal thing called a time to pay arrangement with HMRC. And it is a structured plan. And it can be really powerful if it's realistic. And what a time to pay arrangement is, it's an arrangement that allows you to spread your arrears on corporation tax, VAT, PAYE, all of the above, over a longer period of time. Listen, anyone can get a 12-month time to pay arrangement, but sometimes you might get 2 years, sometimes you might get 3 years, sometimes you might get longer, right? But when you're organising these time to pay arrangements, you've got to make sure all your returns are up to date. So make sure everything's up to date so you understand the figure that you actually owe them. They won't agree to a time to pay arrangement if you've got returns out of date. If you do get a time to pay arrangement, you've got to make sure you keep up to date with all your other bills that come up with HMRC. So if you're in a time to pay arrangement and you don't submit your next VAT return, don't pay it on time, your time to pay arrangement breaks. And you've obviously got to make sure that you make the payments on your time to pay arrangement on time. If you don't pay a time to pay arrangement on time, it fails, okay? And don't set up fantasy plans because you just want to get them off the phone or out the business. With HMRC, you need to understand what's realistic. And the only way you can understand what's realistic is have a good grip of your numbers in your business. What have you got coming in? What have you got going out? What have you got left? Option 4 is something called a company voluntary arrangement. It's a CVA, and it's a formal insolvency process that essentially it's there for businesses that are viable, okay? The debt's the problem, not the trading of the business. You might be a haulier that has an O license. You might have a CQC registration. You might have something very valuable in your business, a contract and accreditation that doesn't allow you to use an insolvency option like liquidation or administration to start again. But essentially, CVA is a financial story. There's a draft proposal that goes out to your creditors. And I'm shortening it down here. It's a lot of work that goes into a CVA. But it basically tells the financial story with numbers to your creditors why, if they support the CVA, they will get paid this much back. And if they don't support the CVA and it ends up in liquidation, they're going to get this much back. It's called a comparison statement. And the idea is to get 75% of your creditors to agree to the CVA. 75% of your creditors by vote. So let's say every pound that you owe them is a vote. And if they accept it, you're in the CVA and you've got legal protection. There's no insolvency practitioner appointed. They just oversee it. I mean, there's downsides. Your credit's shot while it's in a CVA, but it's there for businesses that are viable. Then you've got things like administration. And administration is used to protect a business, restructure the business, sell the business. It's not for everybody, but if you've got some good parts of your business that are viable, you can put the business into admin and then buy those assets out of the administration. Now, there's some risk. In an administration, there is a marketing period. In theory, somebody else could come and make an offer for your business. Doesn't happen very often though, okay? Again, I'm just broad brushstroking these. We really need to have a chat if you want more information. And then there's like liquidation. And that's where the director said, you know what, it's the end of the line of this business. I want to put it into liquidation. It will write off the unsecured debts, stop the pressure, draw a legal line in the sand, and it will allow the creditors to be treated fairly. And it protects directors when it's done right. But the things that insolvency does and doesn't do, insolvency can stop creditor pressure immediately, can freeze enforcement. It can, in most cases, I think, stop sleepless nights and allow you to move on. But insolvency doesn't get rid of personal guarantees, doesn't remove overdrawn directors' loan accounts. Your director's loan account is going to be asked to be repaid. Now, I've done hundreds of videos on how you get them dealt with, but you've got to go and watch them. Liquidation ain't going to get rid of bad conduct. Insolvency is a process, guys and girls. It's not a punishment. Now, I want to talk about HMRC and insolvency because people think HMRC is just another creditor, but they've got more power. You know, they're looking at behaviour, timings, patterns, cooperation. If you handle HMRC early, it can be manageable. But if you left it too late, they'll wind you up. Now, the biggest mistakes I see directors make is when they wait too long. They borrow money to survive. They're borrowing money just to keep going with no real grip on what that money is going to cost, how they're going to repay it. And they'll have signed personal guarantees on that money. They're just draining company funds because they need to maintain the lifestyle. But all that's doing is making creditors' positions worse and increasing your overdrawn loan account. They don't get advice early enough. All this is avoidable. But the way I think you should approach insolvency is, like, first of all, slow things down. It's what I'll do with you on the phone. What's going on? What's the outcome you're looking for? Where are the risks? Where's the personal risk to you? And most people do not do that. We'll do a hell of a lot of work without asking for a penny to help you understand your position. And this approach will remove fear. And it will help you choose the right path. No pressure, no judgment. We're not going to spout the Insolvency Act at you. Insolvency doesn't need to be the end of your career. It's not the end of your life. And it doesn't need to be something to be ashamed of. But ignoring it is dangerous. If you're a UK director at the start of this journey, unsure, worried and Googling late at night, please speak to us. will help you understand your position, what it actually means, what risks exist for you, and what your safest options are. There is always a solution, but it's only if you act early. I've talked about overdrawn loan accounts in here. It's a big problem for directors. I want you to go over there now and watch that video on overdrawn loan accounts, because this is the one thing that gets people and costs them tens of thousands of pounds, and it will tell you if you've got one, how you can check yours, and what you can do about it. Thanks for your time.